Let's talk about Jairus' daughter. And let's look at the passage here. So Mark 5:23. My little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her so that she may be made well and live. The Greek there, you might see, if you know a little bit of Greek, you know a little bit about the letters eschatos. Eschatology, end times, last things. So the way it's translated commonly is she's at the point of death, or she is dying, or she is about to die. Eke eschatos. In Matthew, however, Matthew 9:18 says, my daughter has just died. And you have a different verb here. But come and lay your hand on her and she will live. So you have one that's present tense, and you have a verb that is past tense. Here is my recommendation to you. We could try to say something like, this is a broad paraphrase. I'm not so sure about that. I'm not sure exactly how exactly that would meld, that you'd fit the two with the different tenses. But I think it's key that we read the pericope to see how the author is using language to faithfully construct the history of the events. Read the pericope. Don't get caught up in the detail here. And I'll explain why in a moment. Because when we see the forest through the tree, or the two trees that we're looking at, and when we see the forest, we can better understand the details. When we see the big picture of what's happening in the passage, the pericope, and we compare them side by side, we can understand what's happening. So I've done a little bit of that for you. So compare Mark 5 with Matthew 9. And I've given some verses here. Mark 5:23, this is at the point of death, aka she has not yet died. Keep reading this story. Now, what happens in between this event is the woman with the bleeding comes and touches the cloak. This is sort of like something that happens in between Jairus meeting Jesus, the woman touching his cloak, and then we come back to Jairus, the events of Jairus and his daughter. Get to verse 35, and you see from Mark's account, there came from the ruler's house some who said, your daughter is dead. There are servants, there are either people or servants that have come out of the house to report the news to Jairus. This is news to him that his daughter is dead. Verse 23, she's at the point of death, aka she has not yet died. Now people come out of his house and say she's dead. They've reported the news. Verse 38, they arrive, so Jesus, Jairus, and a couple of his disciples arrive, and the ruler says to the people there, why are you making a commotion and weeping? The child is not dead, but sleeping. Now, I think a charitable interpretation here is not that Jairus is in denial, that the girl hasn't died, and that she's only sleeping, she's in a coma or something. I think he realizes she's dead. What he means here is that his faith in Jesus is so strong that it is as if the girl were actually sleeping, and that Jesus is going to bring her back to life. I think that's the way we charitably interpret verse 38, because it also that passage also appears in verse 23 of Matthew 9. So let's compare. Again, let me quickly rehash this. Mark 5:23, she's at the point of death, aka she hasn't died. Then verse 35, some people come out of the house, they report the news to him, and then Jesus goes in and brings her back to life. Matthew 9, this is where we have the daughter has just died, but come and lay your hand on her and she will live. And then you have the passage of the woman who's touching the cloak. Then we get brought back to when Jesus arrived. I could load up the passage there in full. But the key here is that with verse 23, and when Jesus came to the ruler's house and saw the flute players and the crowd making commotion, he said, go away, for the girl is not dead, but sleeping. You've got that same line. That same line appears in Mark and Matthew. What's different about Matthew's gospel? What's different about in Matthew's account is that you do not have the people coming to report the news. It seems as if Matthew has struck out that event, that micro event from his narrative. He has shortened the story. Matthew has edited out, if Mark were written first and Matthew came second, Matthew has edited out. So if you believe Mark's gospel was written first, like Bart does, we can simply see this as a form of an editorial decision on Matthew's part. Now, if you take out the people that deliver the news, then it becomes awkward. The story doesn't make sense. What you have to do is for the narrative's sake, you modify the tense of what Jairus reports. So she isn't at the point of death. She's not about to die, but she has died. He's simplified the narrative in order to faithfully, reliably construct the historical events that occurred in a simpler way. In this regard, we wouldn't say that there's an error. When someone simplifies a story for you, even in common parlance, we wouldn't be so pedantic to say, hey, there's an error there. We show charitability in our communication when people make literary changes. They have literary license to make editorial changes for our sake. It's a good intention. We don't think that Matthew was intending to mislead his audience. We don't think that that's what he's doing when he makes that change, or if he makes that change. We could just pose it hypothetically, for example. We wouldn't say that Matthew is intentionally misleading people, nor would we say that Matthew is intentionally putting in an error. There is no error here if that's what Matthew has done.